Hello, friends, and welcome to the Worship Guitar Show. Hope you're doing great wherever it is that you are. If you get a second, give a holler in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you are, and what new gear you are interested in. Tonight's show is about how to find the right gear, how to get, hey, Brad, good to see you, how to get the right piece of gear the first time, how to do some of the different research techniques that I've used as I've been buying and selling gear, and how to kind of utilize a combination of, dare I say, Sweetwater, Reverb, and Craigslist as the vehicles by which you kind of get a chance, if you will, to take the temperature of the air around a particular piece of gear. So I've got some web browsers. I guess it's a web browser, but a number of different windows already pulled. We're going to talk about some of the pieces of gear that I am particularly enamored with and get a chance to dig into them. And then there'll be a couple of others that we'll invariably talk about. I'm absolutely open to taking questions. And let me just check in on this little piece of technology over here. I'm viewing things from a couple of different windows, so I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. Awesome. Well, first of all, Craig, hello. Paul Richard, hello. Who's watching in the Richard household right now? Brett, hello, my friend. Gary, hello, hello, hello. And Melissa Doppler. We're talking about gear. So, Worship Guitar Player Buyer's Guide 2022. So this is, in some ways, going to take a little bit of a look back on 2021 and some of my favorite pieces of gear, because sometimes that's where you kind of get the ability to kind of have something that's been on the market for a minute, have the ability to kind of see how well it's fared. And one of the things that I always use, especially when I get a chance to review or buy something, is I'm going to go over to Sweetwater, I'm going to go over to Reverb, and I'm going to show you how I use that. And for those of you that have been on Doppler's Gear Garage or the GTR show, you may have seen some of these different techniques, but we're going to specifically talk about it in terms of the house of worship for a couple of different reasons. One, a number of the people that I know on, if you will, my mainstream channel come from these guitar amps, and they have oodles and oodles and oodles and oodles of guitars and amps and all this crazy gear. We're generally speaking worship guitar players. We have a Sunday purpose, and although we buy gear and use gear for other things, we have a tendency to be very, if you will, purpose-driven people. So with that said, a lot of it is based around our pedal board or our multi-effects, and in turn, the guitars that we're going to use on a Sunday. There are other instruments, as Paul Richard and his wife will attest to, but the point being is that this gives us kind of a focal point. So just as a very, very quick overview before we dig in, Telecasters, right? Gretsch, right? Amps that have some sort of direct out. Very important, because that way we're able to get a great sound out of the instrument, and the ability to get front of house is equally important. We're actually, at the top of this, not going to talk about any modelers directly, but I am absolutely happy to answer a lot of questions. I've been spending a prolific amount of time with the Axe FX3 around some IRs that I'm doing per video for a series of videos for Eminence. So, obviously that is on the menu. If we want to talk modelers and so on, I'm down with that. Brett, with great pleasure. And I'm going to kind of take a quick moment and read back through the comments here. Curtis Smith, great to see you, my friend. All the way up from Canada. That's probably the longest commute of the day. All right, good. Okay, just bought USB 2 audio interface, SM57, nice condenser mic for recording. Awesome. So, the interesting thing is there's a conversation happening. I'm not going to rabbit trail too far, but here's the thing. The goal is to serve you. So if you're like, hey, I don't just play at church, any tips on recording gear, I'm all in. And these same techniques apply. So what I want to do is very quickly just kind of jump into said techniques, and I will do my best to stay tuned to the chat. But I will say, Craig, signing in from North Carolina, I have an HX Stomp-based rig, but I'm tossing around the idea of trading everything for a Helix for all-in-one. Okay, and this is why, again, it's important for us to look at all the different options. Thin. Hang on a second. Hello, Chris Kettle. How you doing, my man? And hang on. Here we go. I will do my best to stay focused, but make sure I've got my finger on the pulse. Brad, Guitar Miller, saving money for a Telecaster, going to build from scratch. Awesome. At Texas Toast Guitar in Denver in September. Thinking Bixby. Thin Line. Great. Awesome. You know, remind me a little bit later on, and we will kind of have this Thin Line conversation, because the interesting thing is there's a guitar that I've got here that is a, Brad, you probably heard me mention it on Saturday. It's a Fender Telly Thin Line, and I thought it was going to be this great open, airy guitar, and it's the most nastiest, stanky, down in the bayou, swampy rock guitar in the house. So sometimes we have an idea, and I'm not trying to steer you one way or the other, and we sometimes kind of go, wow, that's not who this guitar was at all. All right, we are going to jump in right here, right now, and there are a couple of products that I opted to kind of profile in the beginning here because I thought this was going to make the most sense. So we're going to move over to Google Chrome, and we're going to start off with, and you can see me in the lower left-hand corner, hello, and I will do, again, my best to kind of keep the comments open so I can see them as I'm doing this, and I've got to do just one little bit of adjustment. All right, there we go. All right, let's do that, and let's do that, and let's do that. There we go. All right, that right there, and that right there, and that right there, and that's the one that I want right there. There we go. All right, that's going to enable me to see what I need to see. Good. All right. Hopefully. All right, so let me just jump in right here. That overlay, hang on a second. I've got to fix that. Just 1 second. Is that going to be an easy fix there? Let's see. Overlays. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, I'm going to have to give me just a quick moment. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I got this saved here. All right, let's do that, and let's get rid of that overlay. Done. I said done. All right. Well, all right. Oh, good. There was a delay. All right, good. So what we've got here is that if we go over to Sweetwater, and this again could be any instrument that you're interested in, but I want to go through the methodology of kind of how we drill down. There are two sides to this. One is when you first go to make the purchase, we are looking at this transaction moving forward. But at a certain point, Paul Richard, myself excluded, you sell gear. And I say that because Melissa Doppler's listening. And I actually do sell gear. And so the idea is there are things we want to keep in mind when we go to buy gear. That is, what is our exit strategy if at some point we know we're going to get rid of it? So one of the things is, as I was looking at the different colors for the Player Plus Telecaster, which I have absolutely fallen in love, for the money, it is unbeatable. So although this is kind of the range of the Player Plus Telecaster, some of them are the Nashville with the 3 pickups, and then on the far left and the far right here, you see the just kind of the traditional layout. You will notice that the green one, which I actually love with the maple board there, it's got 5 5-star reviews, and the kind of this strange kind of sunbursty guy off on the far right that goes between white and black, which I honestly, I'm not a huge fan of. It's got 4 kind of 4.5-star reviews. So the instrument that I actually ended up getting set to review is this green puppy. So as opposed to clicking on that, I already had that window open over here. I'm not going to go too far into the weight of kind of these different instruments. You know, the difference between, 8 pounds, 8.3 ounces, 8.2 ounces, 8.1 ounce. It's pretty small difference. One of the things that I am absolutely interested in is what Sweetwater does really, really well is this little list of stuff right here. They do a phenomenal job of making this legible. The other thing that I want to point out is that as you eventually go to restring your instrument, if you're anything like me, I usually fall in love with the sound of the strings that come on the instrument. So being able to see what originally came here, this is also on the Fender website, and 95% of the time, Sweetwater folks have got this right. I'm not saying that Fender strings are the only strings in the world, but I find that I really love the strings that most of the guitars ship with these days, so I want to find what they are. Okay, as we scroll back up to the top of the page, and I've already got it pre-selected for us to be able to jump over, 5 reviews. So here is that page, and this is where we find a bunch of things. So usually as you scroll this, and you can sort this, and I'm sure you know this, but you can sort it by a couple of different ways, by the date or by rating. I always like to scroll down to the bottom, and I like to see what the lowest rating is. Generally speaking, these are people that cared enough to actually give their opinion. Imagine that guitar players have opinions, but give their opinion about the instrument, which means that it's somebody that's had a chance to play the guitar and find out really what it does, such that when you're potentially buying it, you're getting a pretty good idea of what it is. So now the interesting thing is that I also like to read kind of the negative things that people say, because that's pretty insightful. So generally speaking, lots of positive stuff here. And I'm not going to spend too much time reading through this. There are a couple of other pieces of gear that I do want to go through. Now, when we head over to Reverb here and we start kind of doing an initial search, this is the display you get. And there are a couple of things that I would encourage you to consider doing when you're looking for a piece of gear on Reverb, whether it's new or used, but in particular, if it's new, this photo in the upper left here and this photo right here, those are the stock Fender photos. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when I see something like this guy right here, or I see something like this, I know that that's a shot that the store has shot, which tells me a little bit about their internet savviness and their capacity to present things, and that translates into shipping things in the digital era, and that's important to me. So let's say we actually selected one of these guys. No, I didn't select this. This is actually a different, how did I get here? I'm going to show the path to do this a little bit later. Hang on a second. I've reversed this. All right. So let's say I drilled down from what I think was either this listing here or one like it that had some sort of background, because I'm like, hey, this is somebody that shot their own photos. This is somebody who gets the digital age. What's interesting is that, yeah, there we go. Jerry's Music, 587 sales, 5 stars. That's somebody I'm comfortable buying from. And then over on the right here, we're going to take a look at this in a minute, but 4.5 stars with 3 reviews, and we're going to kind of poke through that in a quick second. But again, what I like about this is that this dealer took the time to give me lots of shots of this, and generally speaking, this will probably be the actual instrument you're buying. I really like that. And one of the things that is really good about this is that if you kind of zoom in here and it's all minty, and then the instrument shows up and there's something not quite minty about it. Now, obviously, when it's new, it's new. But the point being is that it means that you have some extra buyer protection going, hey, that's not the one that I bought. There's a lot of safety there. Now, over in the lower right-hand corner here, find more on Reverb. That's where this window came from. So the thing about that window versus the initial search window that came up when I organically typed in Player Plus Telecaster, I would far prefer to look at this one. One is I can toggle easily between buy new and buy used, which you can do over here with all of this stuff. But this is a much more orderly way to be able to look at this stuff. I just find that I can scroll here, I can see the colors, and it's just, for me, a little bit easier in combination with the mouse to be able to cruise up and down and do that. The other thing is when you get to the bottom of the page, and I don't think you get it over here, you do not. Sorry, let me leave it there so you're seeing it. You get this stuff. And that is really, really important, because this is where we find out what the people who actually made a verified purchase, what they have to say. This top one, I think, was the one that I wanted to... There we go. Just very briefly, I had originally been searching for an American Fender when I started reading specs, looking at pictures, and watching a lot of YouTube videos about all the available Telecaster models. The Player Plus series is the most expensive Mexican model, blah, blah, blah. The short version is they're like, they bought it, and here's the important part, amazing. They're like, love this. And, so when you see these kind of reviews. The other thing is I'm always pretty good when I see 4 out of 5 stars. I'm kind of like, I love everything about it. So I'm the 5-star kind of guy. The 4-star people have a tendency to be objective simultaneously. Now, here's this thing. He's talking about the noiseless pickups, one of the larger kind of points, and this is where kind of heading on to, I'm going to jump back over here for a quick second. There we go. One of the things about heading over to traditional social media and watching what people are saying, on various forums, whether it's Fender, Telecaster, I should say, groups, you get a chance to see what people are saying down in the trenches. The challenge is that sometimes the traditionalists will all get together. The noiseless pickups on this guitar are phenomenal. And one of the comments in one of the places was talking about the person plays some AC/DC, and they were like, this is great, I can turn this thing up. And the thing about the bridge pickup in this guitar, it's just ridiculous. So the point being is that there are people who are going to be like, it doesn't have vintage spec. It's got a 12, I think it's a 12-inch radius, but it means the notes don't choke out when you bend them. What they've done is they've got a bunch of features that make it a great feeling and playing instrument. One of the people had said that there was kind of showed up with a little bit of a blem. So I'm always kind of aware of kind of like, what are the people who've actually purchased the instruments, what are they saying versus the people who have no skin in the game, who have a lot of opinion. I'm always a little cautious, but at the same time, I also want to take the thermometer of what's on the street. Speaking of taking the thermometer of what's on the street, I want to be able to monitor any comments here as well. And I have Windows soup at the moment, so allow me to kind of address this problem here. There we go. What's going on, Deanne? All right, good. All right. Zachary, what's going on? Hello. Thanks for joining us. Now here's an interesting thing. Okay, so this is great. I'm gonna bring this in. Here we go. So most of my electrics, I use 9 through 46, but when my Strat had 9 through 42, I just loved the setup. It was perfect. So I kept buying 942s for that one. So that right there is gold. I had a conversation, I think it was with Bruce Adolph, publisher, worship musician. And if it wasn't him, it was somebody equally statured. Generally speaking, Fender makes string gauges for Stratocasters and Telecasters. Many, dare I say most, but not all, come with a 9 through 42. So the spec of those instruments was designed for the amount of meat on the bones, if you will, on a 9 through 42 set. There are a number of guitars that I have that I purposely tune down to E flat, and those I will put at 10 through 46. Let's talk Gibson world here. Gibson is a 10 through 46 world. Generally speaking, tuned to A440, that's where those guitars kind of like to live the most. The point being is that a hybrid of a 9 through 46 is kind of the best of both worlds, but in some ways it's going to make the Strat or a Telecaster sound a little bit different on the bottom end than maybe the electronics and so on and so forth were designed. The benefit of that is if you have a tendency to hit hard, especially if you spend a lot of time in the studio, having that little extra bit of meat on your low E string in particular is a big deal. I don't like the feel of a 17 on the G string, and that's where you really feel, as I recall, a 9 through 46 doesn't have a 16 on the G string, it's got a 17, and as much as that seems like a relatively small amount, it is a noticeably stiffer feel. So again, getting back to the string thing, seeing what originally came on there, maybe you don't like the original strings. For me, much of the time I'm like, this thing sounds great as it is, trying to find my way back to that. So I've actually been ordering a bunch of these Fender strings for these guitars and spending some time intonating them. No, here's the thing that I can appreciate about that, and it is not blasphemy. This is the thing, is that all it takes is one Telecaster, and I will say that. So my buddy Scott House, who was the worship pastor in an old church of mine, or at a church I used to attend, Melissa used to work at, he loaned me one of his Telecasters with a Bigsby, and that instrument really kind of opened the door. So sometimes it's a matter of like, hey, can I borrow your Telecaster for a week? let me see this thing. And sometimes then all of a sudden you discover it, especially sometimes when you have a chance to bring it home and kind of live with it as is. All right. We're going to go Gibson. Hello, William. Thanks for joining us. All right. So let's see. My favorite guitar I own is a Gibson SG. Holy cow. Imagine that. 61 SG reissue. Lovely guitar. Is it just me, or is SG never seen played anywhere in worship? Not for lack of tone, because there is plenty. Is it maybe stigma? So, first of all, there is a band that was on Integrity called Worth Dying For. And they were kind of this really kind of edgy 5-string bass. The guys were both playing SGs, and they were playing through orange amps. And they had an amazing sound. Lincoln Brewster, I think, produced one of their albums. So I have spotted SGs, and here's the deal: if you put a Bigsby on anything, you're cool. So if you put a Bigsby on the SG, you're in, right? But no, you do not see a lot of SGs. You don't see an awful lot of Les Pauls, and in general, besides the ES339 and some ES335s, those are not necessarily instruments that, for whatever reason, are there. But so let's very briefly, before we kind of dig back into some of these other things here, because again, I want to engage both. The reason that I think Telecasters are so popular, and Gretches, is that they have a jangliness that is not as full-bodied as something like an SG or a Les Paul, or an ES for that matter. ES has got a little bit more air, but there's still some girth happening down. It's a wider sounding instrument. So the great thing about a Telecaster is it kind of sits where it sits, and for the most part, you're going to be heard so long as the sound person isn't too busy texting. Did I say that? So I think with that said, thank you, Brad. All right. So, and I appreciate you filling in the blanks there, because I do not want to spout disinformation. So Diodario uses a 16 for the G string, which I just don't like the feel of a 17. But again, that is somebody else's opinion. What we want to obviously watch out for is just like, what do we really like? And yes, it's valuable to gain other people's input, but not at the expense of kind of losing our ability to kind of go, well, that's great. Everybody's into this Telecaster thing. I played it and I'm just not feeling it. That there is no shame in just kind of going, not working for me. All right, let me just do this right here. All right, there we go. I should be able to see. Come on, Facebook. Let me see the comments here. Hello. All right, I know if I actually go to do what I want to do to see this, it's going to start making all sorts of noise. But there we go. All right, the comments are back. Great. All right. Sarah. That's so funny. That's awesome. Hang on a second. Oh, I see there's a side conversation. Hang on a second. This is great. All right. I'm scrolling here, so give me just a moment. Curtis, again, great to see you, my friend. And some really nice monitor headphones for mixing. Okay, I'm gonna very briefly take a little bit of a left turn there. For anybody who is heading into the studio, generally speaking, I would suggest using closed back headphones as opposed to open back headphones. Why might that be? Well, let's just say you're going to use, dare I say, an amplifier and have it up in the room and have some sort of microphone on it, and you've got the click going. You'll get some bleed from the open back headphones, but especially if you use those headphones to record a vocalist, all of a sudden the mic is right here facing them, and the open back headphones will create a bleed if there's a click or the track, and that's going to be trouble. So you want to be able to isolate that. So, I'm a big fan of the kind of the sub-$100 Audio-Technica MX, whatever they are. They're just great. Also, the Audio-Technica AT4040, as I recall, just kind of entry level. Everybody who starts their home studio and wants to record vocals, great. Can't go wrong with an SM57 for guitar or an SM58 for vocals, but in the studio, I think you do a little bit better with the 4040. It's just kind of everybody's starter. All right. Now, here we go. So although we're not going to go deep on this, and unfortunately I can't pull this in because of the way the comments came in. Hello, Alan. Great to see you, my friend. Jem, hey, no, you're always right on time, my friend. So, by the way, let's give a big congratulations to Jem. Jem has become a content creator for those folks at Multitracks. So, you're going to be able to nab his awesome presets for stuff like HX Stomp from Multitracks. So, let's give Jem a big round of applause. Welcome, my friend. It's a big deal. That's awesome. All right. Wally, hello. We're bookending the States here, and I hope you're staying warm. Obviously, warm enough to be on the internet, so that's a good thing. And obviously, you have power unless you're on your phone. Okay. Again, DM, great to see you. Zachary, okay, Gettings, okay, greetings. That's that phone thing. It's just like, darn it, it happened again. Okay, so let me get here. There we go. Okay, there we go. Definitely, I've definitely seen the gauges of strings 2 to 5 definitely vary slightly on different brands. Yes, they do. And generally speaking, the Fender brand, 9, 11, 16, 24, 32, 42. That's kind of the standard set on a 9. And I don't think I'm going to be able to go down 10 through 46 quite as efficiently. So I'm not even going to go there. How about that? That's judicious. Kind of, why does this thing keep pausing here? If it's sputtery, I apologize. I do not have wireless on, but oh well, it happens. Okay, I saw a comment here that I wanted to nab. Before we go back in and look at some of this gear, I do want to speak about, because it does relate to gear. And first of all, thanks for everybody showing up, hanging out. Awesome. When do we change our strings? So behind me is my little kind of like my string. That's actually a tall PV412 cabinet from the late 70s or early 80s, but it also makes a great string changing and intonation bench. So there are some of my guitars here that I just love them so much that I kind of play them longer than I should. So the number one sign of when you know you definitely need to do it is when you can feel a little tiny bit of pitting, in particular on the D string, where it's just kind of sanded against the edge of the fret there. And you can feel if you run your finger underneath the bottom of the string. The D string is the first string that's going to happen on, and basically means what's happened is you've created this little groove inside the string, which means the string will not vibrate properly up and down the neck, which means it will not intonate properly. Generally speaking, along with changing your strings, you should probably check your intonation by setting it, if you will, on something flat if possible. And harmonic at the 12th fret, not hitting it too hard. As a matter of fact, hitting it softly, and then coming over the top of the neck and gently at the upper edge of the fret, touching as lightly as you can and hitting it with the same amount of velocity. And if the note is too high, you need to basically move the saddle this way. So basically you're turning clockwise. And basically what you're doing is you're moving the saddle piece further away from the fret, which is effectively making the string longer. And it means that this guy is further away from the saddle piece, which means it's lower. Most of the time, I've discovered with the guitars that I'm playing these days that for whatever reason, my guitars, when I have to make adjustments to the saddles, they seem to be wanting to play sharp. So I'm having to pull stuff back. But that may just be me. All right, Craig Lucas. I'm actually going, let's see. No, I can't see my play. Yeah, oh, there it is. Right there. That right there is a Gibson little plaque that came on an Epiphone that I bought. And this is one of the things is that there is a conversation. I don't think we're going to go too far down that rabbit trail tonight about, if you will, the, SEs and the Squires and the Epiphones out there. And I must admit, buying into a little bit of like, well, I'm not a Gibson guy, I wouldn't be playing Epiphone. And I had to kind of give myself a talking to about like, well, why am I such a snoot? And, is it even accurate? So there are a couple of Epiphones hiding back there and I'm waiting for an Epiphone bass to show up from the good folks at Gibson that I can't wait to get my hands on. I ended up getting this Epiphone with Floyd. I love that guitar. Ridiculous instrument that you heard me maybe rave about on Saturday. The point being is that the Squier instruments, as I also mentioned the week before this past Saturday, I've got a Squier Jazz P, ridiculous instrument, sub $300. You know, I put any other sub $300 instrument against that, besides maybe the Epiphone, which is actually more than that. It's just crushing it. All right. All right. So let's get back to Brett. I love it. My need list is shrinking very quickly. The want list, not so much. I love that. Black and silver is my favorite. So here's the thing. This is the other thing is taste is such a personal thing. Sarah, what's going on? So the short version is that Paul has become one of my faithful students on Saturdays, and his wife Sarah shot this very cute video. They've kind of been doing some remodeling, and he's got this music room, and she comes in, she's got the iPhone, and she's like, "This I knew about. This I've never seen. It was the most." It could go so viral. That's all I'm going to say. All right. So before Paul gets stuff thrown at him, because it was the cutest thing ever. All right, let me make sure that's so. There's a conversation happening in the sidebar here. That all right, there we go. Good. Oh, there we go, Bruce. Thank you for sharing the official Worship Guitar Player Buyer's Guide. All right, good. Brett, I use Elixir on most of my guitars. Generally, they last at least 3 months. So this is the thing is that coated strings, especially if you've got the gunk, it's a great way to go. And, you know, there is this concept of like, and I lived for a number of years / decades in like it was D'Addario and then it was GHS progressives. Like they all went on the guitar. But kind of one of the things that happened is there were a couple of vintage instruments that came into my life and vintage oriented instruments that Sonotone is used by Joe Perry and Jeff Beck, and they sent some strings to review, and I was like, these are ridiculous. And they're basically these wonderful old school nickel strings. They cost an arm and a leg, but they sound great. And I kind of went, you know, different guitars, different strings, especially when I started getting these Fender guitars. I'm like, I don't want to put a different string on there. I want what's on there, right? Okay. Hey, there we go. All right. Paul Richard. Doug, serious question. Roswell sells a Mini K mixed pair combo pack at a slight discount. K47 looks good for guitar. What are my thoughts on the included K87 pack? Asking for a friend. That is a really good question that I don't know if I can accurately answer. I personally, if I were buying one or other for the studio, and I was already into the Mini K47, which is not available on Sweetwater, Roswell Pro Audio, there is a website called Recording Hacks. Recording Hacks. Yeah. And there's just a ton of reviews on a bunch of stuff, including a bazillion microphones. And my buddy Matt runs that as well. And from that information, he said, you know, I can make a better mic than a lot of the things that are out there. And that's where the Roswell Pro Audio comes in. And his mics are awesome. And I don't remember what the price on the Mini K47 is. Hang on. I think it's, hold on, let me not do that. K47. There we go. All right. And the price is new. And this is one of the things we're going to talk about in a minute. Is sometimes you'll see $349, and then you'll see $339, and then $319. Generally, my guess is the map on this is $349. Manufacturer advertised price. Every so often, somebody gets in there and undersells somebody else by $10 to try and nab the sale. Generally, that is not favorable play. of how you want to be in the marketplace, but that's a different conversation. But we want to reward those people. So to answer your question, I actually would suggest going with with a pair of them. Please tell your friend that we already own 2 mics. Oh, this is awesome. You guys, you are definitely invited back. You're adding the humor. This is great. Gary, I love this. I can be a guitar snob myself, but bought a Squire to keep at the office. The funny thing is, you start playing them and you're like, here's the deal. Some of them are great and some of them aren't. Generally speaking, the stuff that I find that comes from Indonesia, it's great. The Chinese stuff, some of it's good, some of it's not. Rodney, hello. Find with my old Strat, I leave them on a long time. Eventually, I find that even though the tuner says it's in tune, the ears say they're not. That it's time to change. So here's the thing that starts to happen. That's a really good point. And then I'm going to dig into amplifiers. And let me make sure I'm not missing everybody over here on the other feed. Okay, there's Jem. Okay, hang on. Give me just a moment, Jem, and I will hit your question here. So the pair of the Mini K47s, which I think are just for the money, phenomenal guitar mics, and great for vocals. Actually, search YouTube for the demo I did on the Mini K47s. I used them on pretty much everything. They're great. They're great for voiceovers. They're great for vocals. They're great for bass. They're great for guitar, acoustic, electric, slide. They're great. Great. So having 2 of them means if you want to record in stereo, boom, you can. Or you really like the sound of the mic, but you've got this particular amp over here and this particular amp over there. And if you're anything like me, I can't move the mic once they've said it. You know, it's just like, then you're kind of like, oh, well, now, then all of a sudden you're like, well, I kind of need to buy another one. Don't tell Melissa I said that. All right. Jem, question, great question. Do you think that in 2022, every guitar bass player should have an amp cab simulator in their rig? Obviously, that's asked in the framework of the House of Worship. At least I'm just going to presume that, and I'm going to answer that with that in mind. Oh, I didn't finish the intonation thing. My bad. Sorry. So the thing that happens is you play guitar and a string. If you bend, and you only bend at the 15th fret, and that's all you do on that second string, guess what? That part of the string right around the 15th fret is going to start to get distended. Same thing happens if you like play in A blues just a lot, and you're bending on that G string at the 7th fret there, and that's the note you like to bend on, and maybe the B string at the 8th fret, like that's kind of home, and maybe even the high E string at the 8th fret. What begins to happen is that little part of the string starts to get stretched more than the rest of the string. And so what ends up happening is you kind of like, all right, I tune the string, I intonate it, but it's still out of tune. And then there's all the Telecasters. If you really want to lose your mind, try and intonate a guitar with 6 strings and 3 saddles. You're like, you just kind of go for the best of both. And yes, you can get replacement bridges and whatnot. But some of the magic of a 6-string, 3-saddle bridge is that their strings are having this interaction with one another because they're sitting on the same saddle piece. It's one of the same reasons that I believe a combo, Jem, I'm going to get to you in a moment, is... married to the music. Sarah, I've got to keep it coming. I will come back and review. You know, the idea is that I believe a combo with the speakers inside, they're gently romancing the tubes. I think it sounds different than the same amp, but the speakers elsewhere, because there's this harmonic massaging that's happening based on what's coming out of the speaker. I firmly believe that they influence each other. Okay. Oh, that's funny, Alan. Churches shut those down. No, maybe that was about amps. Oh yeah, there we go. Especially for church. So to answer your question, let's go over to here, because we are supposed to be talking about gear. and boom. Okay, so we're talking about the Rev D20, one of my favorite amplifiers ever. And so this, again, when we're talking about that point of purchase, 14 4.5-star likes, 4 5-star likes. Which color do you think you're going to have an easier time on resale? 3 to 1. So that is a consideration. So as we drill down to the product page, this is really funny. I'm like, first of all, nice, good photos. This is the great thing about Sweetwater's. These guys do not mess around. And they also watermark all their images. But the funny thing is I started scrolling down this page. I'm like, hey, there's my buddy Todd. And all of a sudden over on the right here, there's this... I'm like, wait a second, that's me. So the funny thing is, a little bit earlier I was talking about the thin line Telecaster being this kind of grungy, ganky kind of thing. It's like that. There's that guitar sound and doing what it does. So also getting back to, like, if you can, if you have to choose between a black one or a white one, well, the obvious decision is to get both. I am an excellent influence on everybody. All right, so here's the thing. What makes these amps so special is this little bit of business right here. On the back of these guys, they've got basically two nuts torpedo technology embedded, which basically means you've got amp and speaker modeling, basically IRs and reverb that you can have in there on a preset by preset basis. On the face of this unit, there's a 6-way rotary dial. I know this amp a bit. That guy right there is virtual cabinet, but in the midst of pulling up the virtual cabinet, anything that you can load in torpedo, you can load in there. So that is to say there's not only virtual cabinet modeling, but there is power amp modeling. So there are a couple of switches, and I'm going to go a little bit down the rabbit trail here, but this is well worth it. So as that zooms up, are we zoomed? Yes, we are. You can see that the 20-watt, 4-watt options gives you the ability, even if you're using the quote unquote, the direct out and not using a cabinet, that allows you to manipulate the pair of 6 V6 tubes, which is the essence of a deluxe reverb, allows you to kind of go, look, if I'm going to run it at 4 watts, I crank that up. It's going to be less efficient than if I run it at 20. That is to say, you're manipulating the headroom of the power amp section. The other thing is that the pre and the post was absolutely forgotten what it is. I think it's an insertion point for, hold on, pre and post, hold on. Pre and post. Well, this is the great thing about reverb. What did I say reverb? Gosh darn it, I used to know what that does. It has to do with you know what? Read up on it and go watch my video. At least that guy knows what he's talking about. Pre and post, gosh darn it. In any case, it's got an effects loop, and so it's got all the stuff that you might want to have. But this little bit of business here, the USB connection, and it actually has, unlike some of the other gear that's out there that will drive you nuts, it actually has a USB to whatever the letter is connection, which means you don't need some fancy pants USB thing that you may or may not have. As much as it's slightly antiquated, what it means is you're able to have one of these because everybody's got 20 of them. You can connect that puppy to your computer, and then you're able to use the 2-note torpedo embedded technology to basically dial up all the sorts of things. And this thing sounds great. It's basically a deluxe reverb in a little tiny box, and they sound great in stereo. Here's on the right-hand side, first of all, you can select 4 ohms or 8 ohms, and then you have the ability to select the internal load or the speaker, which basically bypasses the need to use a speaker. It's a great little amp. Now, the interesting thing is what I did was, up here, you can kind of click up there where the reviews are. I kind of already pulled that off here. And again, I always like to go down to the bottom and see, first of all, the people at the bottom of the list fall in a couple of different categories. People who've not had a great experience for a range of things, and whiners. Because guitar players, myself included, can become whiners. Generally, the funny thing is he's saying, great pedal platform amp, bland sounding direct tone. So let me just very quickly see if I can jump over. Where are my comments? Where were my comments? down here. Okay, so this guy again doesn't think it's got a great tone. All right, now then there's this guy Lunchbox Romance. This is one of the best amps I've ever owned, hands down. The sound of the amp by itself is very three-dimensional, but really shines when you plug pedals. The other one was talking about, where's the guy that put it up against their Marshalls and their Bogners? I mean, they went off. Hold on, so let me see if I can find this. So this is where you kind of begin to... well, here's this guy. It took the pandemic for me to realize I did not need my old Marshall 50-watt tube amp anymore. Jem, to your question. There was, where is this one? If I have to scroll too much further to find it, I'm going to dump it. But the point being is that this person basically said, I had this amp and I had that amp, and I had this amp and I had that amp, and I dumped them all when I got this. So, you know, the Jim, to answer your question, let me jump back over to here and come on. It was all great until I opened too many windows. All right, there we go, scenes. Thank you. All right. So the ability to get direct front of house, whether it's from a modeler, whether it's an amp that effectively has modeling built into it. I wouldn't say it's mandatory, but I would say it's probably a really, really smart idea. For one, if you haven't done it, and again, let's briefly kind of rabbit trail back into the recording side of things. Say Paul decides he wants to get a D20. And he has kids. His wife may be preparing to teach a voice lesson. So he has, he can either take his JVM and, use some sort of reactive load box. That amp actually has the direct out as well, which actually sounds really good. Or something like a D20, you can use that to go direct in for recording as well. So the neat thing about that is it enables you to kind of fine-tune your tone with your guitar in the privacy of your own home through studio monitors, which are more like sort of a PA. A good set of studio monitors are kind of some kind of halfway point between a PA and your cabinet. But it gives you an idea of what happens when you're running back through something other than a traditional guitar cabinet. And what's neat about that is it allows you, with the 2-Notes Torpedo technology, to sit there in front of your computer screen and fine-tune, let me hear how this thing sounds with a virtual EL84 power amp section, a virtual EL34 power amp section, and being able to write those into presets into memory that are recallable via MIDI, and in turn you can dial that up such if you want to go for your lead sound, I want an EL34. When I want to go for my Chimey AC30, I go for my EL84. When I want to go for my, let's say Mesa Boogie sort of sound, I've got some Mesa Boogie type of thing that I do with maybe some model or something, I pull up my 6L6. I want to do something that sounds like a Deluxe Reverb, I pull up a 6V6. That ability to manipulate all that stuff, which you can do in any modeler as well, by pulling up the different amps, but usually you're pulling up a different amp. Line 6, you can pull up virtual power amps and separate the amp from the power amp. And you can definitely do that. Let's see here. Hang on a second. All right, so I will have to admit, let's get over here. Preview mode. Let's go over here, unlock the scene. You do all these things to make it better, and then you're kind of like, was it really that good an idea? Okay, we're going into, there we go. And publish. There we go. So this, for those of you that have not spent any time in the fractal audio world, here's kind of the authentic, which means these are kind of the controls that you would expect to see in this particular case on a JCM 800. But then you start getting underneath the hood and you've got all this crazy stuff you can do here. In particular, where is that puppy? Right there. No. There we go. So this right here we are on the cab block. But back over on the amp block here, what this is right here is the impedance curve for basically a JCM 800 / Marshall 1960 A or B cabinet that would have come with this. So that impedance curve means the power amp reacts in a particular way. So that does, in theory, mean is you kind of switch between your different IRs, or you go into, and holy cow, I love this, your different IRs that I'm doing the demos on. It means that you now have just a ridiculous ton of options. So the point being is the ability to get in and manipulate just the basic traditional things, but then get in and really start to mess with the power amp. And for those of you that speak fractal, where is that little sucker? This guy. The bright cap, there are a couple of features inside here. That bright cap right there is where you really kind of unlock that kind of hidden thing. The other thing is down in the cabinet block here. Let's find that. Yeah, you have this filter section. And this is generally where's the one with the slope? Oh, there we go. This guy right here, the low cut and the low cut slope. Basically, this is where you eliminate the rumbly, nasty, terrible stuff that you don't really need in the mix. And then this is the slope of how steep that EQ is. The point being is this sort of know-how, in theory, is what you learn as you begin to manipulate your helix or your axe edit or something like the D20. This is basically a virtual representation of what's happening in a real amplifier. That is to say, that little block I showed you is what happens when your real JCM 800, back there somewhere, no, it's out of frame, interacts with a real 412 cabinet. It sees this very unique impedance load, and the amp behaves differently. So the same thing happens in the virtual side of things. So there's this whole world that you kind of begin to understand. Even if you just end up going back to the traditional amp and cabinet model, you kind of begin to go, that is to say, the actual template of you, I'm using an actual amp and a cabinet. You then kind of go, it's not just that the speaker cabinet, a different speaker cabinet is going to sound different as if I picked up a different megaphone. That cabinet is having a conversation with the power amp section of the amplifier, and that is in turn influencing the sound that's coming back out. So there's this interactiveness, hence this concept of a reactive load box. All right, sorry, I went down the rabbit trail there, but it was a really good point, because for those of us that are trying to figure out the solution for church, as Jem said, especially for church, it matters. Okay. So and I'm gonna engage this. Peter Daviduck, hello, my friend. So I have. Can you see it? Yeah, right there is a headstock. So that guitarist got a wraparound bridge. So they now actually make bridges that actually have kind of mini 6 sets of saddles that are designed to sit there. If your guitar is set properly and your nut is cut properly, it will come close to intonating, as opposed to that guitar that it just kind of is. You just kind of, but part of this is where you need to separate yourself from reality and being anal retentive, and have to find a way to live in between those two worlds. Keith Richards has been recording with a Telecaster with 3 saddle pieces, and fill in the blanks, Tom Petty, I don't know, think of all the worship people that play a traditional 3 saddle Telecaster, and then put a bunch of delay and reverb. Who's going to hear it anyway? Well, you hear it when you move the chords up and down the neck. It matters. But there are certain things that it doesn't matter as much, and that kind of, there are certain types of things that are forgivable, just in the way it operates. And you, at a certain point, you kind of go, all right, there's going to be little things, because I spent a bunch of time playing a Telecaster today, and it's not a perfectly intonated instrument, but that imperfection is part of the magic at the same time, which is a strange thing for somebody that is madly anal retentive. MSDI. No, oh, is that an S instead of oh, there we go. Microphone simulated direct out. Thank you very much. Thank you for those of us that don't speak MSDI or Michael Spriggs direct out. Tuned by Michael Spriggs. Oh, that's awesome. Absolutely. Reverb is awesome. And I'm going to, let's see. All right. A USB A to USB A to USB B. Say that 10 times fast. Printer cable. That's exactly the thing for those of us that were around when printers had cables. Thanks, Alan. All right. Okay. So, I think, Jam, this is the thing is that there is a divide. I'm going to make sure I'm not, the challenge with having two different, the short version is that Facebook, because of how we connect to Facebook, I can't get it to feed in the chat in the same way that YouTube does. So I have to be really conscious of how I manage my windows, or else I end up going only on the YouTube comments or only on the Facebook. So now I've got them side by side. See if I can manage this reasonably. All right, let's see. Good. Okay. All right, good. Okay, there's Sarah. Rodney Morris. I find the G string is the one my ear keeps wanting to retune, even if it's in tune. There is a strange thing that happens with the harmonics and the overtone series when certain notes play together. They just, in the same way that if you hit the harmonic at the 5th fret on the D string and the harmonic at the 7th fret on the G string, you hear the when they start to bead, when the frequencies, you're actually hearing the beating of the difference of the frequencies, and they get closer and closer, the woo 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 starts to even out. But even once it's in tune, as you move around, there's this harmonic overtone thing that happens where sometimes they're just not totally harmonious. And so you just kind of have to go, huh. The other part of this is, and this is the thing with the and I hope this I'm not deviating too far, but again, answering people's questions is as important as my sitting here and running through Sweetwater, Reverb, and in a moment, Craigslist. Because that's another place to navigate. And I frequently get questions about Craigslist, which I did from a buddy yesterday. So the ability to just kind of go, the guitar is never perfectly in tune. If you can kind of live with that, thanks for the thumbs up, then you can kind of go, okay, well, what am I willing to live with? The other thing that's super, super important is many guitar players are unaware that you really want to play at the upper edge of the fret. Because if you play in the middle of the fret, what happens is the string, kind of, if you think about a bridge, you can push that string into the fingerboard and it will go sharp. So that's why you want to be at the upper edge of the fret. So you want to be conscious of, it's one of the other things about this thing is you want to have curl and arch to the last joint of your left hand, but you don't want to be here like this. So when you make contact with the string, you pull the string down like that. You want to be pushing the string directly into the fingerboard at a 90-degree angle. It's one of the main reasons that the guitar is in tune, but the guitar player isn't. And the other thing is that there are certain chords, in particular, that are they're the poster child of everything stacking up against you. That is to say, I was talking with somebody the other day, one of my students, and saying it's really hard when you're strumming super hard with your right hand to not start to grip harder with your left hand. And you have to train yourself not to do that. And in particular, and I encourage every single one of you, because I will say 50% of your guitars will fail this test. The C at the 1st fret on the B string, because of the height of the nut and the way the nut is cut, will play sharp. That is to say, you've got London Bridge here, and then you got the fret kind of here, and you're basically taking the string going, noink, and the string is being pulled sharp. And the thing about the C chord, generally, you should be putting all the fingers down at the same time. But when most of us learned to first play guitar, what was the quote? Hang on a second. This is my favorite quote. This was Saturday for me. And this quote is you, by the way. And be prepared to just go, ouch. Where is my quote? All right, no, I know what this should be. All right, our on-ramp to guitar is only as good as our first guitar teacher. Like, everybody should be going, oh, ow, right? You know, that is to say, their understanding the instrument, which for most of us was some stoner dude or doodad in the back of some music store that was like, hey, here's some manuscript paper. I'm just going to draw an extra line and some little hash marks there. And if you're lucky, it actually, when they wrote out the A minor pentatonic, they actually said it was the A minor pentatonic scale. And off it went. They didn't actually tell you it was A, C, D, E, and G, that the 5-note scale pentatonic has 5 notes for every tonic, and those notes actually are notes. That's why it has the shape that it does. 99.9% of us never got that part of the conversation. All we got was a shape. So guess what? We looked at guitar and all we see is shapes instead of going, wait a second. The reason it had that shape was because of what notes were in there. It means if I know what these notes are, I can kind of really understand and kind of start drawing my own shapes. Kind of powerful. There was a student that I had, and I cannot remember who it was, but they said this thing that just blew my mind. It has nothing to do with gear, so I apologize. They're like, once I know where the notes are, I can play any instrument. And I was like, so this is the person that learned music from their grandfather. But the grandfather said that, and I was like, they said that, repeated that in the lesson. I was like, wait a second, what? I was like, oh, okay. It meant that once they understood, like, key of E major, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, once they understood what those notes were, they needed to create an E major triad, E, G sharp, B, the 1, 3, and 5. They needed a major 7 triad, E, G sharp, B, D sharp. If they needed to go to the 2 chord, F sharp, A, C sharp. If they needed to go to the 3 chord, G sharp, B, D sharp, because all they took was E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, and just started harvesting notes from that. And then they just started playing those notes at different locations on different strings. And they're like, this guitar thing's easy. I was like, wow, mind blown. But, you know, that means they go over to the piano. They can do that. They go over to, you know, a 1-note instrument like a clarinet. And once you make some reasonable sound. Yeah, no, thumbs up. I was so floored. I was like, once I realized what Gramps was up to, I'm like, this guy's a musical genius. And it's why certain people can pick up any instrument and just go, I got this. Because they understand. They didn't have stoner dude or dudette in the back of the music store. As I said, you know, mom and dad motoring you down to the store, you know, and dropping you off, kicking you to the curb. And, you know, and you've got somebody that's just taken manuscript paper and just basically add an extra line. You've got tab, here you go. See you next week. You know, that was where many of us started. And so our on-ramp to music, that was where our introduction, that is to say, is if you studied English from somebody that was not a fluent English speaker, your initiation to speaking English would be rather challenged. Nothing wrong with non-English speakers, let me be really clear, but if you're looking for somebody to show you English, it's probably a good idea if they are a fluent English speaker. Point being is that same thing with somebody that's fluent about music. It's not mandatory, but at the same time, the truncated version of the reality of what the music universe actually is, the note names, the chords, the names of the chords, the numbers of the scale degree numbers that go in there, the theory, the understanding of that is a lot more than, you know, a little scrawled pentatonic shape. There you go, Bobby. See you next week. Thanks for the money. You know, it's just like, I don't mean to go on too far a rant, but it's a reality there. So, Jem, when you talk about people being hesitant, I think people are scared. You know, if I'm really honest with you, you know, the great thing is that I have the privilege of knowing a bunch of these people at these companies, in particular, Matt at Fractal Audio and the folks at Line 6. They've been great friends. But Matt at Fractal Audio spent over an hour with me walking me through Axe Edit and how to manipulate the cab block. And, so as an end result, I'm like mind blown, because these guys are just ridiculous geniuses. Because in the process of understanding the depth of field there, and the short version is that actually this is relevant to our conversation. This is what is great about this modeling technology. And again, we're going to talk about modeling gear, amps, cabinets, speakers, microphones, recording. Basically what the Fractal folks have done, and arguably, not even arguably, better than anybody else in the business. They've been actually there for a long time. They have something called speaker drive. They've got proximity built in there. You can do all the things that I know how to do with a microphone in the real world with a cabinet. They've replicated that process and all the sub things that happen in that when you have a speaker and you have a microphone, one of the ways you make that microphone bassier is by moving it to the edge of the cone as opposed to the center of the dust cap. But if it's at the center of the dust cap, you bring that microphone closer, like an SM58, you get a thing, 57 rather, you get a thing called proximity effect. Not always great on all microphones, but on an SM57, that's how you make a combo start to sound gigantic. And it increases the low end without actually losing the high end. It's so the fine tuning thing is I spent a lot of time in the box. I came back to doing some miking stuff and I was like, right. So there's the kind of, if you will, the x-axis placement as it relates to there, and then there's the z-axis as you're bringing it closer and further away from the speaker, which increases the proximity effect. So there's actually a proximity dial in access at it. And there's also a thing called speaker drive, which is basically going, how much is the power amp pummeling the speaker? So it's as if you're like, here's my Marshall on dived, and the poor speaker is going, ah. But it's one of the things they enable you to manipulate. They're just, and I love all the other folks, love them. In particular, Line 6 is as committed as any brand I've seen for the House of Worship. But the Fractal guys kind of got a whole thing going, And in any case, probably lost everybody here. In any case, let me scroll a little bit here. Good. Is that Bruce? I know a guy. Oh, Melissa Doppler. I know a guy. Okay. Gary, too kind, way too humbling. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, here's the thing, is that the great news is that a lot of the stuff that I've learned has been from YouTube. And the other thing is that like Jem has spent a lot of time doing gear demos. The best thing you can do is get a camera and buy a microphone and an audio interface and some studio monitors and some headphones and start moving a microphone around. And, whether it's a Mini K47 or an SM57, sub $100 microphone, just kind of go, that's what he's talking about. Oh, cool. And then you begin to understand the nuances of that. And it's just like why I have different guitar picks. Now, these are both 1mm Tortex, but the black Tortex, because of the die, ends up being a little bit more pliable. And these will, actually, now I can do it better with these guys. So here is the blue guy, and here is the yellow guy. What most people have never done. All right. Different note. You think that doesn't affect what happens when you hit the string? Hello? Somebody just went, mind blown. Because when you actually go, let me listen to the purely percussive sound of the pick itself, you just gotta go, I had no idea. Then the next thing to do is take your guitar and mute it and only make it so you hear the sound of the pick going, blick, 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 and you realize how much the sound of the pick is the sound of every note you play. And in turn, the pliability of the pick, for those of us to play bass, how much finger you put into the string, how little finger, thank you for the thumbs up there, how much or how little finger you put in the string, how much glide you got with that, how hard you hit, how deep you go in with the pick. Do you wind up? Are you right there? Little pick strokes, a little bit of palm muting, just very small little wrist movement. Like, it all has a huge amount to do with the way that string basically responds to that transfer of energy. It's nuts and it's awesome. Okay. Okay, new grow. Oh yeah, no. Oh, you're so naughty. Especially newer circus boards amps. That is of course a circuit board, but they grow cracked solder joints. So the sad reality is that I have. I'm actually a fan. First of all, there it is. PV Mace. Alan can tell you all about that amplifier. It is a solid state preamp with 6L6 power tubes. It is unreasonably loud. And when I say unreasonably loud, I say that with that amp right there. That is the Marshall Major, also known as the Pig. It is a 200 watt Marshall. It's the only amp. The PV I can be in the room in. Bring the thunder. I love you, Alan. Always a pleasure, my friend. It's the only amp that's actually too loud. And you got to have the right cabinet because it literally is 200 watts of Marshall madness. But it is a beautiful madness. But it's actually too loud. It's too painful for me to be in the room and turn it up to amp volume. So it has to go basically right there as an isolation booth. It kind of has to go in there. And I may open the door of the booth a little bit because it's positioned in such a way that I can hear the speaker when I want to, depending on how I've got it positioned. It's on wheels, so I can make it so I can hear it in line on axis, and then I can close that puppy up. I also have microphone movers, robotic movers called Dynamounts. And those enable you to not have to be in front of the speaker to move the microphone and to be able to do it and kind of fine-tune things by ear on all the different axes. The Z-axis, the X-axis, and the Y-axis. And that's how you do that. And, as long as we're going to go there, if we're going to spend lots of money on microphones, my favorite combination is a Royer 121 and a Shure SM57. Royer doesn't make it, but there's a little clip that allows you to put those two together. And the power's not on. I've got actually a video camera in the amp booth there. But when the power goes out here, I have to go back in there and kind of turn everything back on. But basically, you can see, kind of see where things are. Not that you really need to see it. It's a matter of just kind of adjusting it. But the point being is it's this clip that holds both the 57 and the 121, but they're perfectly phase aligned. And that's really important so that then, because the challenging part if you're using them on separate mic stands or, some sort of thing is that they need to be phase aligned or else you get not good stuff unless you're purposely trying to misalign it. All right. So let's see. I am going to go back over preview mode. Good. All right. We're going to go to this right here. Scenes. Holy cow. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. All right. Let's get over to here. We saw that. Okay. Now we are going to go, we've talked about a little bit about some of the lesser expensive instruments. We're now going to dip over into some of the more expensive instruments. In particular, this guy right here, or maybe it's a gal, I don't know. I have a tendency to refer to my guitars as she's, but that's merely my thing. This is the Richard Fortis Gretsch that I'll be reviewing in this upcoming issue. And Richard, in case you didn't know, is the guitar player in Guns N' Roses and is one of the scariest guitar players on the planet. So this is a new guitar. It's here, and it is awesome. Does it do Guns N' Roses? Yes. Does it do AC/DC? Yes. Does it do Praise and Worship? Yes. Is it $3,500? Yeah. But it's awesome. When we want to go deep, we go deep. All right, hang on a second. So I went over to the Hot Rod Deluxe 4, but the amp that I really wanted to go to, right, so we needed to get some pedals here. So Michael Hodge, one of the writers for the magazine and guitar player at Lakewood Church, is reviewing this pedal. So this is a Source Audio Zeo analog front end boost and pedal. So basically, actually having watched the video, which is one of the best videos I've ever seen, they basically say that it's basically like you can choose the style of buffer essentially that it is and how it interacts with the thing. And so the short version of what they were talking about was that different buffers have a slightly different vibe, and there's a couple of different buffer types. So they're like, look, if you have a buffer pedal and then it's true bypass and you turn it off and the buffer goes away, your signal chain changes. So this is intended to be a front end and boost. So if you want it to be a boost, you can, but it basically allows you to tune the different types of buffer and really tweak your signal. And if you want it to be just a monster boost pedal, like I am jonesing for this little $199 item like nobody's business. So Michael, more power to you. Let's go over to good old Reverb, or sorry, Craigslist. So I keep a pretty close eye on Craigslist, and ironically, my buddy reached out about Craigslist in Reno, and this is kind of how I got stuck on Reno. And I was going through this like, wait a second, there's only 585 listings, but more or less what I do when I'm actively Craigslisting is I'll get to a certain point to a certain page, and I'll be like, oh, I've seen those listings before, and I say current. In particular, what I wanted to point out was this magic little amp here, this Bandmaster Reverb. This is what's called a drip edge, and this is a very special little amp, and they have a tendency to get banged up a little bit, but this is, again, one of those places where reverb can be a big help, because then you kind of begin to go, okay, well, let's see what happens when I search. There's our, we're going to come back to that, but we're going to go Reverb, and we're going to go here. You're going to find these guitars are about $400 more expensive, $300 to $400. So here we are, and by the way, I'm like, I saw this, I'm like, oh, so that one's actually really clean. It's got the matching JBL cabinet. I'm like, oh, look at that. But the point being, going back over here, good, I'm on the right window. So these guys, this is not a drip edge. This is a 69. This guy is the drip edge. Basically, the drip edge is this funny little kind of thing around the edge. Yeah, this person is on crack. $3,500. Like, no. Oh, wait. Oh, it's with the cabinet. My bad. It's with the cabinet. I thought it was just the head. And this is where, by the way, when you go to list stuff on Reverb, if this is going to be your first picture and you can't for sure, especially if it's on a phone, see that there's a cabinet, the way you title this thing, super important. Head and cabinet. But I actually have jonesed on this one as well because I kind of like the way it's gotten like that. I don't really like the way it looks like somebody's cat got to the front end of this thing. But this one is clean. But again, $2,499 versus $3,500. And then getting back over here, $1,299. These have a tendency to live in the $1,300 to $1,400 range, which means this little amp over here for $1,000. If Melissa can't find me for 2 or 3 days, it's because I drove to Reverb to go. Drove up to Reno to go buy this. I drove to Reverb to get it. This amp, this is one of those amps, and then you'll want to go in and kind of make sure that it hasn't been brutalized. But when you see the back of this thing and it's as clean as that looks like it is, this amp is a smoker. And basically what these guys are is the very beginning of the blackface era, but they're basically silverface era, but they're basically blackface amps. This amp is amazing. And will it take pedals and will it do P-dub? Absolutely. So I had to get that in there. Yeah. There we go, Alan. And yeah, so there we go. Killer amps. Hold on, Alan. Oh, wait, I can't bring. Oh, hang on. There we go. Let's go home here. There we go. Yes, Alan, I knew you know that. And too many monitors out there. So there's always some genius that thinks that they have to go in and fix perfection. These amps, it's a road trip, and I'm going to be coming to your couch when I'm done. Because as Jimi Hendrix said, my key won't unlock this door anymore. So in any case, just ridiculous. That's one of the amplifiers I'm like, it will be mine. They are kind of like everything you love about a super reverb. And as I recall, it's the same circuit as the Vibrolux reverb, but with more wattage. And the Vibrolux reverb is a 210 combo that's kind of like if you took the best elements of a super reverb and a deluxe and put them together, that's Vibrolux reverb. Just a very, 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 very special amp. Only your chiropractor knows for sure. Actually, the funny thing is, my chiropractor is the guy that I learned about about the drip edges. He had both a drip edge super reverb and the Vibrolux reverb. Oh, those were great amps. He sold them. I don't see him anymore, obviously, after that. No, he's a lovely guy, and I do see him. Okay. Good. All right, hang on. Let's get back over to here, real world. All right, wait a second. I have to get... Where is Fire... Oh, so where we go. There we go. Oh, wait. I should have switched back. Oh, no, I didn't... Oh, sorry. Publish. My bad. There we go. That's what I meant to do. All right. Okay. So let's get back over here. And boom. That's right. You can do this, Doug. Oh, there we go. So Gary's comment, I love to buy assorted packs and go through the different picks in there. And, you know, this is the thing is, this is the danger of going with the mindset, that's what I use, right? Versus kind of going, well, you know, I don't know. Maybe I've got it wrong, you know, which is, you know, it's this fine line between, you know, knowing what we like and knowing what works to get the job done, but potentially getting overly confident that what we choose is the best stuff. That's a dangerous place to come to, because it means that we kind of come into every one of these transactions with some blinders on that may not be the best blinders. Now, I'm going to head back over here because this is the Worship Guitar Player Buyer's Guide for 2022. And I'm going to go here. And then I need to go here to activate that. Come on. I need another window for what I'm trying to do here. All right. There we go. Thank you. All right. So the Tonemaster Deluxe Reverb. This is kind of Fender's version, if you will. Let's take a look at that bad boy. Here we go. So this has got, if you were going to do some mods to, you know, a Deluxe Reverb, which is a great, it's a 22 watt amp. Let's see. Can I zoom this? There we go. Let's see. I'm on open image, new tab. There we go. This should be big, nice and big. There we go. So as you look at this bad boy, you will see that, hang on, can I scroll sideways? Where's my sideways scroll? There we go. There are a couple of things on, and it'll be a little bit out of focus, but it's bigger. It's a 112 combo, but there's a power switch. Yeah, you can see my mouse. And then right next to that, there's the on or the mute switch. So basically that's the equivalent of on or standby, but in standby/mute mode, you're still producing signal that's heading out the balanced line out, which uses an XLR. It's got a ground lift, and it's got a volume control, and it gives you the ability to have no cab sim. This one, which speaker is this? Oh, this is the first one. So this is going to be a choice of a 57 or a 121. The second version of it is a combination of a 57 or a 421, which means if you get two of them, which I've got, you can use one on the 57 and the other on the 121 for that favorite combination and kind of stack them together, put them a little bit different. But the other thing is, again, kind of like the D20s, you've got this output power selector. So you have the ability, oh, Rodney, awesome. Oh, dude, it is a phenomenal amp. And again, the ability, and the great thing is the direct out, unlike a lot of the amps out there, it sounds one heck of a lot like what's coming out of the speaker. That is just a lovely thing. So this output power selector, if you look at the far right-hand side, you can't really see it, but where my mouse is, that says 22 watts. And over here, I think it's 0.2 watts. So that, like we were talking about with the Rev D20, gives you the ability to manipulate the headroom of the amplifier. That is to say, if we're running at full 22 watts, you can turn the amp up and it will stay cleaner longer. But as you bring it down, it simulates an overdriven amplifier. Now, where this is a help is this is not only affecting the direct out, it also affects, as I recall, the sound coming out of the front end of the amplifier. Why does that matter? If you really like the sound of the amplifier at 4, well, at 22 watts in your average apartment, your neighbors are going to be killing you after 10 p.m. but you scale that down to 0.2 watts, and all of a sudden you have it at bedroom volume, but you've still got the nuance of the amplifier behaving as if it's running at, so you're manipulating the virtual power amp section, so it's the amp running at 4 or 6, wherever the sweet spot is. That's particularly important if you're running pedals. And the ability to have, again, the ground lift and the level control on the output here. This amp is just phenomenal. So that said, let's get rid of this for a quick second. And again, the neat thing about when you kind of come to this right here, this description, yeah, if I kind of typed in Tonemaster, this is where Reverb begins to kind of fill in those blanks, and that's how you get to this type of result here. And again, what's neat about this is I can go, let's just say I'm taking a look at used. This person over here, Nate's Shack. First of all, I begin to look at comps. But the other thing is I'm looking at Nate's Shack. There is telling me some really important information that I want to know. Nate, poor Nate, is madly anal retentive. And I love Nate for that. He's still got the paper thing on the top of the amp. He's got the guy, the owner's manual. He's got the foot switch. He's got the cover. Like, Nate takes care of their stuff. Look at that carpet. All right, this is the other thing about these kind of, if you will, this is my abode shot. Let me see if I can find somebody that is actually, everybody here, these folks are pretty good. Like, if I disaffectionately called somebody Pigpen, let's see if I can get to Pigpen. Let me show you Pigpen. I can find Pigpen. Let's find Pigpen. Eventually, we're going to find somebody that basically they got it on a rehearsal space floor. It's filthy. It's dusty. It's dirty. There's beer, stained on the floor. All right, so I'm not going to scroll here forever, but let's see if I can find a really good example of who it is we never want to buy something from. All right. Now, this is a reissue. This is the original deal. Sorry. Non-original knobs, got some chips, well shot, but I'm kind of like, well, if they replace the knobs, it's actually got the original JRC 4558. But the point being, I'm already kind of going, for that kind of money, I can find one that has the original knobs, which is going to be worth more, and it's cleaner. I guess we didn't do a very good job of finding Pigpen. What piece of gear can I look for and find Pigpen for? I know where I can find it. So the crazy thing is, as you see this, you can see what I've been searching for. So let's see. Somebody in Marshall World's got to be Pigpen. All right. Why does this matter? Because when you're buying a piece of used gear or you're selling a piece of used gear, you're leaving all sorts of clues about who you are as an end user. If your room is filthy and it looks like you live in squalor and stuff is all dusty, even if you manage to clean something up, well, here you go. Here's a great example. I give you Pigpen's cabinet. This guy is on crack. A cabinet in this condition, a local pickup. Antonio, I love you dearly, but look at all the beer. Let's just hope it's beer that's been stained on this cabinet. Just no. So that sort of nonsense here, it's like, no. And let's see, the thing is that now the back actually looks pretty clean, although it's had a second hole for where the post goes inside the cabinet. There you go. These things famously crack. But then the other thing that he's not showing you, I want to see what's inside this cabinet. It should be G1275s. Yeah, it comes with the original. All right, but the point being is that thing is like clean it up a little bit. It's just filthy, And I'm not paying 600. Basically, I could find. All right, hang on. Now I'm going to go to San Francisco Bay Area, musical instruments. I'm going to search Marshall. And this is kind of part of the heart and soul of what I wanted to kind of get across is how we use these tools that are readily available in front of us to actually help us get the best deals. And if you buy something off of Reverb, you're going to pay for the shipping. Now I conveniently am kind of getting my little Marshall fix here because I'm always kind of keeping an eye on stuff. And this is what happens, and it's really annoying. People use Marshall to kind of keyword their listings, but sometimes you'll see one that kind of gets buried here on the second page. And it's always nice to see it. Here's an amp that you want to stay away from. This is I introduce you to Pigpen. This is a Retro 50 Custom Shop amp. This was a $3,000 or $4,000 amp. Look at what this. I'm just going to say it, this filthy pig did to this brilliant amplifier. I don't care enough about, that's just the exterior of the amplifier. How many times is this thing being dropped? It's just like unmolested circuit. Well, thank you very much. You were busy dropping it. This should be 3,000. All right, so hang on. So here's a great point. It's like, all right, let's go back. Sorry, I'm going off here, but it just like that stuff just annoys me to no end. Let's go back over to Reverb. This is a $3,000 amplifier. All right, $2,300, brand new. Whoa. I'm pretty sure this has been discontinued. That's actually a smoking deal. But the point being is like this amp, I wouldn't touch it with a 20-foot pole. And he cross-listed it under Marshall, which is always annoying. So here, normally you can find a 412 cabinet. This one's a little hot for $500. You can get it for $400 or $350 on a good day. But and then there's a hole in the grill there that and it's kind of trashed, and the back plate that's a reflection. But here's the thing: what you begin to do is start poking around, and you kind of get. Yep. Now the other thing is that one of the things you can do is go to a place like Los Angeles. So I just clicked over here on the right-hand side. I'm going down to LA. Not really, but the point being is now I go over and select this, and I select Marshall. Because sometimes it is, worth it to kind of go, okay, well, let me, oh, yeah. Now, then you start to see some of this groovy stuff. There you go. So here is one. I'm going to start here. Look at the condition this thing's in. Oh, it's an older cabinet, or it's got vintage. Oh, interesting. 8 ohm. So you want to stay away from anything that's Marshall Lane 8 ohms. But the point being, it's got its own version of grooviness. But I'm not going there. All right, hang on. Oh, no. All right, history. There we go. Let's go back there. Oh, no, that's not what I want. I want this. All right, then I can just navigate back here to there. Boom. Let's go back to Marshall. Because everybody who does praise and worship, I probably lost everybody doing this. Right click to open this up. Reverb, and by the way, Reverb will open a listing in the next window. Craigslist, I use the right click, but this is really, oh, look at that. Look at this and look at that. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at how clean that is. Going to LA. Not. Okay. So let's just see Marshall style. And here's the other thing that you want to begin to look out for. There are the more expensive Marshall cabinets, and then there are the ones that this actually isn't one. This is one that just somebody painted like a moron. But this right here, oh, this cab was in a fire. Yeah, no, thank you. No fire sales, thank you. All right. The point being is you cross-reference this stuff and you're good to go. And Paul, if you're still with us, you know, if you need a second JVM, there it is. $1,400 is a good deal. Okay. Paul, take me your mode 4. Take your mode 4 to church. Kills the front rows. Did you mean dirty potato chips? Tell me about it. Okay, here we go. Let's get back over here. And let's get over here. Come on. Something that is undesirable about my... Come on, I chose the scene. Take me here. Thank you. Okay, publish. Good. All right. All right. Paul, same here. I like to keep the box and all the items that came in just in case it decides to sell. I cannot say enough about doing that because, first of all, it shows wasn't the Marshall Mode 4 like 350 watts. I got a story for you. I'm going to talk about the Marshall Mode 4. And Paul, yeah, absolutely keeping that stuff. The case candy, I actually have a box upstairs that's called case candy. All the stuff that comes out of you know, the pockets of stuff. And then I'm also, yeah, Paul, you need another JVM. I mean, how can you possibly live in mono? We live in a stereo world. God gave us 2 ears. All right. So here's the thing is that I was on tour in Ireland. Maybe Belfast or... remember which it was, but so in my rider for the tour, they had to provide an amp on the back line, and the request, although fortunately every single one of them had it, but the request was for an amp with an effects loop. Great. And I think that night I shared, and I think they were clever. They would have somebody, quite often they had the opening act. They would make sure they had somebody in the opening act that had an amp with an effects loop that I could use, or they just got one provided, whatever. But, so the band is gone, or this amp is there. I don't remember if there was an opening act or whatever, but there's this Marshall Mode 4. And like, you know, and I'm kind of going to do my sound check, and the amp's on, and I'm running into the power amp in 350 watts. I'm like, this is going to be great. Nothing. I'm looking at the amp, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm looking at the amp, and I'm looking at the audience, and I'm looking at the amp, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm going, this is getting uncomfortable. I look at the amp, and I'm like, you don't think that this amp has a circuit that it does not pass signal unless there's a cable plugged into the front end of the amplifier. And I was like, well, you know, Doug, at this point, I'd be willing to try just about anything. And so I adjusted the input volume, plugged just some cable into the front end. Whoa! 350 watts of bliss, and I was good to go. And so, you know, it had some sort of circuit, gate maybe, or just something. If there's not a cable, I think it wasn't a gate, because I wasn't playing any signal through the front end, unless maybe the cable that would be plugged into it, that would, in theory, if I plugged a cable not into a guitar, it would be going, meh. But, you know, at this point, it's me into my Boss GT6, into the power amp in. I just need to be able to go whoop, 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 and see if that's working. So I just found a cable and plugged it in, and boom. Necessity being the mother of invention, I can definitely see that. So, wet, dry, wet mode 4s. Oh, you are a sick man. You are a sick man. That's mode 12. Ah! Sorry, I should have resisted. All right. Hang on, let me make sure I didn't all right, let me make sure that I didn't miss anything. Alan, I love having you here, you know that. Good. All right, I think I got just about everything. Hey, folks, it's 7:40. I actually have a little bit of work to do, but what I want to do, let's see, I think I want to play you. I want to play you one of the clips that. Oh, did I render? Oh, you know what? I didn't. Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do that. I don't know. Hang on. Oh, okay. So this is the Axe effects on a 59 Bassman model, and then using one of the Eminence IRs, and this is using that the Telly custom. Once Pro Tools loads, I will kind of bring this clip up, but hello, my dear friend Shane. What's going on, my friend? P&W Gear. Now that's a moniker. Not yet, but our buddy Jem over there at Multitracks does. Awesome. All right, hang on. Let me pull this up. And there will be some. First of all, we meet the first Tuesday of every month, so I will see you all in a month. But I want to pull up this track real quick, and here we go. Here we go. Let's mute this. Awesome. So this is that on a Bassman sound, and let's see which one of these I'm going to bring up. I think I want to bring up this one over here. Oh, just absolutely love this. So this is one of the Eminence IRs. This is a Bassman model, and then the reverb that's in the Axe effects, and that's pretty much it. Ridiculous sound. Just really. Alan, thank you. And thank you for the reminder. This is courtesy of Worship Musician Magazine, whose most current issue with Brandon Lake on the cover. You can peruse at worshipmusician.com. Just want to thank you for hanging out. Alan, always a pleasure. And everybody that hung out. Silky Smooth, isn't that like there's no compression on that? So the interesting thing about this is, before I say goodbye, is that's that Telly custom, and I forget the name of that giant neck pickup. And again, this is the funny thing about these instruments, is sometimes in your mind, you think the guitar is going to be this. There's a Princeton Reverb hand wired that's here. And that amp and the guitar kind of plugged in, showed up about the same time, and I plugged in and went like, this is probably the best jazz sound guitar I've ever heard. And here I thought I was going to be Keith Richards on this guitar, but it's ridiculous, right? Alan's like, sounds like an L5. I was like, no one would believe, if you said, all right, pick the 5 guitars you think this is, no one would go Telecaster. Just no one. Absolutely. And so the thing is that, and so the part of what I'm going to be doing, and I may or may not use the Bassman on the Helix. So basically, there's the main video, and then there's going to be videos for each one of the main modelers, including Helix. And I can't talk about the availability of those presets yet, because it's a conversation I need to have with my friends in Eminence. But I would like to think, right, here we go, hang on. I would like to think that those presets, there will be some way that they will be available to people. And it does vary, from instrument to instrument, but it's always nice to kind of get in and reverse engineers. Like, what were they thinking? What amps were they using? Kind of how did they have it set? As what were they, because when you open up somebody's preset, you look at how, they level things. One of the things that I'm doing in Axe Edit, is I'm being very conscious of my gain staging, that when I bypass a particular block, trying to make it so the level doesn't jump up or jump down. And that way, and that the only exception to that would be the drive block, because there will be times where you want to goose the front end of the amplifier. But generally speaking, I'm trying to make it such that I've got that continuity, and that's one of the things that people get themselves into trouble in, and it's called gain staging. And if you're not conscious about that, all of a sudden you're not necessarily getting what you want unless you're purposely pushing things. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Worship Musician Magazine, Paul, thank you, and we appreciate you as well. Gary, thank you for hanging out to 9:40. Appreciate it. We're at 9:47 even. And excellent. Appreciate it. We also have the Worship Musician Buyer's Guide. If you go to worshipmusician.com, you can find that there. Should be on there. It's not. It will be tomorrow. It will be tomorrow. So, somebody has a little bit of work to do. Thank you so much for joining us. Lord, we just give thanks for the ability to come together in community, the gift of music that's made and played and inspired by community and for community. It is a powerful thing. And I suppose I'm as guilty as the next person of taking it for granted. So, Lord, I pray that you soften my heart a little bit such that I really have a full revelation of what life would be like without music, which honestly I really don't even want to know. But you give us life, and you give us music, and you give us fellowship and friendship and all the things that go along with that. And we just are thankful. I just pray that we can be increasingly thankful for the things that we take for granted, that without them, our lives would be markedly less enriched. And that starts with you and the forgiveness and the grace that you give us. And Lord, I just pray that we could be as forgiving and as gracious with one another and ourselves as you are with us. With all that said, in Jesus' mighty name we said, amen. Well, thank you. That was fun. I think, the funny thing is, as much as I love you too, Captain Scarlet, as much as I love the gear stuff, I think the prayer at the end is always probably like the best part. So, all right, much love. I'll see you the first Tuesday in March. I think I said February a minute ago. The first Tuesday in March. Much love. And awesome. Thanks. And thanks, Gary. All right, everybody. Have a great one. And I need to do this. And I need to do this. And all right.